I'm Deborah Weasley.
And I'm Dolores Potter. And this is
Cold Topics.
We're gonna tear down the mailbox, rip up the floor, smash out the windows and knock down the door. We're gonna rock.
Welcome to Cold Topics. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Dolores. And today's date is September 30th, 1952.
And it's the anniversary of the end of the Berlin Airlift. Today in the studio we have Harry Truman and Joseph Stalin.
We are going to discuss the Berlin Airlift and other political issues today. For those of you rock and rollers who don't know anything about the Berlin Airlift, after World War II, Germany was split into four sections: the French, the British, and the Americans and the Soviets all controlled parts of Berlin. On the east side, the Soviets controlled, and they were communist, but the Berlin wanted to be democratic because they believed in democracy. However, the Soviets and Stalin were not willing to let them practice it, so they blockaded them off and wouldn't let them communicate with the outside world. They couldn't get any necessary goods like food, water, heat, or anything, or coal, so the United States decided to fly over some airplanes and drop off goods so the Berlin people can live.
Now that you know background information on the Berlin Airlift, after the break we're going to have an interview with the one and only Mr. Harry Truman.
Be the USA in your Chevrolet. America's asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all.
Welcome back to Cold Topics. I'm here with the one and only Mr. Harry Truman. How are you today?
I'm swell, Deborah.
Did you know today was the anniversary of the end of the Berlin Airlift?
Well, Deborah, I did know that because it's a very important part of a lifetime in history.
Why do you think the Soviets blocked all traffic into East Berlin?
Well, to me, it was an obvious effort to force the Allies to accept the Soviet Union's demands concerning the post-war fate of Germany.
Why did you decide to help the East Berliners?
Well, Deborah, since the Soviets cut off traffic into East Berlin, many people were left without food, clothing, or medical supplies. Being Americans, we pushed for aggressive response to the Soviet incentive to help them. We decided to take a different approach to the incentive of Soviets airlift. We, as Americans, have an obligation to help any other nation who would like democracy. It is our obligation as Americans.
That was very smart to airlift the supplies to East Berlin, don't you agree?
Dirty dog, Deborah, of course I do. Yes, Americans did fire shots, and we helped provide supplies to all the stricken East Berliners. It was a tremendous Cold War victory for the U.S. We spoiled the Soviets' plan to hold East Berlin hostage, while demonstrating to the world Yankee ingenuity.
Now, Truman.
Yes, ma'am.
Now that your second term is coming to an end, what do you think about the upcoming election?
Well, you know, Deborah, it's up in the air for me, but I am a fan of war heroes, so I am leaning towards Eisenhower.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you, Mr. Truman.
Thank you, Deborah. It was a pleasure being here.
After break, we're going to have Mr. Joseph Stalin.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John or Dean or Harry. Let's do that big job right. Let's get in step with the guy that's hep. Get in step with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We got to get where we are going. Travel day and night for president. Let Adelaide go the other way. We'll all go with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington.
Hi, we're back with Cold Topics, and I'm here with the one, the only, Joseph Stalin. Hi, Joseph. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine, Dolores. Thanks.
Now, Stalin, I really want to start at the show by commending you on your accomplishments in the Soviet Union. For those of you who don't know, Stalin has improved science and education across the area and has made diseases like malaria at an all-time low in the Soviet Union. I also want to commend you on how women in your territory have equal rights and have an equal chance of getting an education.
Thank you. I really tried hard to make the Soviet Union and communism as great as it can be.
Wow. Gee willikers, you're really passionate about communism, aren't you?
Duh.
Is it true that at the Yalta Conference with Roosevelt and Churchill, when you guys were supposed to be discussing the aftermath of World War II and discussing Germany so that Germany would not rise up again like they did after World War I and become a world dominant power in Europe, is it true that you demanded to have a Soviet sphere of influence in Europe?
Yes, I did. We will spread our ideals throughout the world. Democracy does not work. People aren't happier living in a world of communism.
Well, my good friend Deborah just talked to President Truman, and he strongly disagrees with your ideas.
Well, that's his problem, and he has nothing to do with the East.
Well, Mr. Son, I think it is his problem when you are blockading people in Berlin and killing them. Can you explain your motives behind your blockade with Berlin?
Yes, they were on my territory, and people on my territory will be communists, and if not, they shouldn't be treated with respect or sympathy in my eyes. Propaganda really helped me to be dealing with Berlin because it helps people rally up troops and that sort.
Well, I bet you're going to see Truman finding a way past your blockade and providing goods to the Berlin people, huh, Mr. Stalin?
I am Soviet! We prepare for everything! I didn't believe Truman to be as witty as a man as myself. The funny thing is that the aircraft flying over Berlin giving them goods was the same aircraft bombing Germany not so long ago.
Well, that is ironic, I suppose. But it shows how strongly Americans feel about democracy. Well, that's all the time we have for our interview. It was really a pleasure. But after the break, we'll have your viewer questions.
This rare, this simple treasure. Yes, friends, one of the treasures of everyday living is the delicious, wholesome goodness of Coca-Cola. While Walt and his friends pause to refresh themselves, may we suggest that ice-cold Coke, right from your own refrigerator, is perfect refreshment for you and your guests.
Welcome back to Cold Topics. Now it's time to take the viewers' questions. First question.
Hi, why didn't we join the League of Nations after World War I, and why did we join the United Nations?
Well, I'll take this question. After World War I, when Wilson thought of the idea of the League of Nations, the other Americans were not on board with it, so we decided not to join. But after World War II, we decided that there was a need for United Nations to keep us out of another world war and to keep us safe and to keep the rest of the world happy and at peace.
Good explanation, Dolores. Next question.
Hello. What does NATO mean to the American citizens and other countries?
Well, NATO makes democracy more possible in other countries, and it makes the Soviets not as willing to take over. If one country is fighting for democracy, then we will help them out. One country falls down, we all fall down.
Well, that's all the time we have today. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Dolores.
See you next week when we talk about rock and roll.
And remember, this is Cold Topics.